All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our update with our city manager, Andy Stewart, and myself, the mayor of the city of Peekskill. As you know, today is February 15th, and we just want to bring you up to date on some of the stuff that's going on here in the city. So Andy, you want to start with our COVID results and where we are?
Absolutely. So there's good news, Mayor. As you're aware, we pulled data off the Westchester County COVID portal and put it on Facebook so anybody can find these numbers on our city Facebook page as well. The case count for active cases in the city of Peekskill continues to come down fast. It's at 76 people who have tested positive that the county knows about, obviously, because people do home tests and so on. That's not reported. That's about half of what it was a week or so ago. It's been coming down pretty much by that at that rate, because just back in January there was over 1,000 people, up to 1,400 or so, who had active cases. So this number's come down real fast. It's great to see people are obviously having less COVID cases in the city. By the same token, our vaccination rate has hit 91%, which is a pretty good number. Congratulations, City of Peekskill residents, those who are eligible for the vaccine, taking advantage of that, which is almost everybody now. At 91%, it certainly makes so. I still see people wearing their masks, just walking on the sidewalk. People are still being careful, which I think is smart. Really, when you're outdoors, you're pretty safe, but when you walk through a door into an area where there's other people, not social distance, I think it's still smart to wear a mask. We're here in the city, we're still requiring guests to wear a mask and our customer service professionals to wear masks, although we're backing off the mask requirement for people who are working together in the DPW or working in a back room together, something like that. We're relaxing the mask rule a little bit on those fronts. We want to make sure people feel safe when they come into City Hall.
I think it's important that people feel safe and they're comfortable. So I too still wear my mask in places where I do or don't have to. And I think a lot of people are doing I want to say thank you to everybody who did go out and get vaccinated, for taking care of yourself. And we have to continue just to move forward in this. We're kind of in this for a while. So everything you can do to protect yourself is great. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wanted to, there are a number of topics which would be fun to talk about, Mayor. It's great we do these weekly meetings. One of them is you welcomed a new city council person on board last night. You want to speak about that?
We did. So the council appointed Brian Fassett, who has been a force to be reckoned with here in the city of Peekskill. People know he's been a part of the bid. He has a business here. He's bought a home here. He's bought the building that his business is in, and he's been entrenched in the city, doing a lot of things that people may or may not see. So we welcome him to the council. We know that he's going to bring fresh ideas, a positive attitude, and we're all looking forward to working with him. So it's Brian Fassett as your new councilman.
Yeah, I have to say that over the last 2 years, I've had a lot of interactions with Brian. We set up a weekly meeting between my office and the Business Improvement District, just so that we can keep track of all the things in the downtown area that we need to be paying attention to, from sanitation to signage to just repairs that need to take place. We have a long list of items that we've solved and items that still have to be addressed. But he's been a great partner, him and Bill Powers, and some other folks. Deb Malone from the chamber has participated in those meetings very regularly. Cynthia from the Whiskey River, who works real hard as a volunteer for the bid as well.
Right. It just shows how important it is to have partnerships within the city, and we are fortunate that we have all those partnerships. So it makes it easier for us to get things done for the city when everyone works together. So I appreciate all those people involved. And I think people will come to find that Brian will bring a lot to the council and to the city.
Yeah, I just want to put in a plug for the way people act as our eyes and ears out on the street. Brian and the bid team have always done that, particularly for the downtown. But this is true more generally in the city. Like just this morning, I got an email from somebody said the street lights out. And there's a sign, a stop sign that got knocked over by a car. We let these our DPW guys immediately started working on those things, but we wouldn't know about it as quickly if people didn't take the time. Just go on the website, pull down the contact form and send us that information, and it comes right into our emails, and we can start the wheels turning.
Right. I mean, it's not a complaint, folks, and I think people feel like, oh, I'm just complaining, but if we don't know about it, we can't fix it. And we need our citizens to be our eyes and our ears so that we can have, the best and safest city we can have.
Yes, reminds me, just last night, Councilman Fernandez was talking about a couple of potholes, which I wrote down. I have to get that information over the DPW as well. So we appreciate, no, it's about a pothole, let us know so that we can make sure it gets filled up.
You laugh about that, but the governor in her budget has put in something called POP. So it's all about fixing potholes, and she's putting to the tune of like $100 million into this fund to get potholes repaired in towns like ours. So if her budget goes through and is passed and that is in it, that will be a welcome thing to municipalities to take care of potholes. They're important. Your car goes through them, you can bust a tire, your alignment is done. So it's important that we take care of them and make sure our streets are safe.
And our roads in the Northeast take a beating because of the thawing and freeze cycles and the activity of trucks and plows and everything else. It's a part of maintenance. You're going to have potholes that need to be filled. Depending on the season, sometimes the fill goes in, it doesn't last very long because it's really too cold for a patch. So come springtime, we really need those reports to make sure we catch all the different road hazards that might be out there.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. You mentioned the governor. I know that you recently went up to a New York Conference of Mayors conference set of meetings. Would you like to speak a little bit about that?
I did. I had the pleasure to go on Sunday where we had a 4 o'clock session to talk about really the things that are going on here in the state. It was a great opportunity to meet different mayors and council people and administrators to kind of see how they do business throughout the state and how it compares to Peekskill. And I'm proud to say that, we have a great city and we're doing things just as other places are doing. But it's different. So if you're an upstate and you have a municipality of 2,500, it's a lot different than what we do here in Peekskill with 25,000. Mm-hmm. So we spent a lot of time going through some of the things that are in the proposed budget, looking at how it would affect municipalities differently and coming up with a plan of how they want to interact. So the ADUs was a big topic, and if it's mandated by the state, how it would affect all municipalities. So the NICOM conference is not in favor of that, maybe in favor of ADUs, but the really feeling that each municipality should be able to control how that's done. If it was mandated, then we would not have any zoning or any kind of say on how they're done. So that was a big topic.
Mayor, just to spell that out a bit, most people might not know what an ADU is. It stands for accessory dwelling unit. And that's if you can, it's like a mother-in-law suite, or it's fixing up your garage as a habitable space. The state is considering passing a law essentially that permits ADUs, I believe in single family zones where currently can be prohibited. And it's really a rather, in some ways, radical thing to do for the state to change local zoning. And they want to do it because there's a shortage of housing, which we hear about a lot in terms of housing affordability in the housing market, and yet it presents certain questions as far as how it would look for any particular place.
Right, it's very different. If you're in upstate New York and your house is on 2 acres of land, and you want to put an accessory dwelling on there, it's going to look very different than a house that's here. That's on a 1/4 acre of land and trying to do something to that effect. So there was a lot of conversation on that. There'll be a lot to come on it. Bail reform was another big topic. And again, how it affects different places within the state. Are we going to swing from one side, one pendulum where there's, no bail, all the way to the other side where everybody's remanded? So there was a lot of discussion on how we come up with modifying, or do we modify that? So you'll hear more on that to come. Talked a lot about how to do business in the city in terms of open meetings and, what's happening in terms of COVID and how meetings will go back or not go back. And things continue to be both Zoom and in person. So there's a lot of meetings on that. And then some good talk in terms of water and sewer. So there were a lot of information on projects that were coming through in infrastructure within the state, talking within the budget of how money is going to be administered and put into these kind of categories, a lot of stuff on transportation. So it was just good to see what was going on we'll continue to meet and talk with NICOM and look to see how the budget comes out and how it affects the state.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's really important stuff, Mayor. I'm glad you went up there, kind of participated in that process, because NICOM is a great source of information. And just to note, the governor did extend the open meetings law to allow municipalities to continue to meet remotely for the next month or so. They have that law expire every month or so, and they usually wait to the very last minute to let us know if in-person meetings will be required or not. So they extended it. What it was it's a suspension of the open meetings law, which requires in-person meetings, and so they suspended that again for another period of time so that municipalities can continue to meet remotely if they want to, which is what this city has been doing. We've been doing remote meetings for the council of the whole and hybrid meetings for the common council meeting. The planning board and the zoning board and other groups have been making use of that option as well.
Great. So when did that announcement come out? This morning?
It just came out today. Yeah. They leave it to the last second, which is hard because we actually plan meetings ahead of time.
Right.
And it matters how we provide public notice of a meeting in terms of people knowing how to participate in it. If they had allowed that suspension of open meetings to just expire, that really would have thrown a wrench in the works for the meetings that are already planned. It'd be nice if we knew ahead of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's good to know. Great. You want to talk a little bit about the new mental health crisis team project?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, Mayor. You know, someone that came up in conversation last night in the discussion. The police chief commented on it. We're very lucky. I got to tell you, we're very lucky. Westchester County is quite progressive in terms of its support for local municipalities. And one of the things that they're doing is essentially paying for mental health crisis counselors to be co-located, like right within a police department. So when police are responding to domestic incidents, to people having an emotional crisis, some kind of mental health, they'll actually be able to have trained crisis counselors with them. This is particularly in evenings and at night and on weekends when a lot of times, you know, people experience these kind of troubles, and there's fewer of the usual services available, which are more 9-to-5 counseling kind of outfits, which generally would take the case. So it's really kind of a great idea. We haven't figured out exactly how we're going to house these folks yet. We're going to need to come to the council with some kind of a lease agreement. Obviously, we wouldn't be charging them for it because it's a shared service. But we've been trying to figure out, because we're pretty jammed up. I mean, the neighborhood center is a real busy place, but we've gotten a little flexibility from nutrition in terms of their use of office space. And our eye on the prize here is the city has an archive room that's overflowing with boxes. So a lot of that stuff really should be thrown out. As we start trying to get our arms around the archives, we may actually liberate a little more space in the basement of the library, the neighborhood center, which could be used for these kinds of services. So the county has actually engaged us in a conversation. Maybe they could provide a little extra support as we try to get through the archives room and maybe find a permanent location for the crisis counselors in that way. But in the meantime, the county is wonderful. They're paying for the service. It's a Westchester. I'm sorry, the name.
Westchester WJCS,
Westchester Jewish Community Services, I think. They basically had an RFP, and different nonprofit agencies that provide mental health counseling responded, and that was the one that got the contract for our area. So it's something a lot of people talked about through the police reform process. Is that, as we all know, you know, mental health is one of the things that is sort of the most frequent source of people calling for emergency response, whether it's police or ambulance, paramedics, other things. And you know, police walk into a lot of situations where you know, they have training to help people to kind of de-escalate and so on, but you really need somebody there who understands psychiatry at a higher level. And the purpose is to it takes some work on it because obviously, you know, situations can be hazardous, and the way that police respond in tandem with mental health crisis counselor needs to be really understood, so that the crisis counselors aren't put in a position of any kind of hazard. The police are there to support and sort of analyze the situation, and then allow the crisis counselor to handle the conversations that need to take place.
The service that's long overdue, well needed, and I'm excited and happy that we're going to be able to make this happen. And it's one more step in the police reform that, you know, we really want to see happen here. So kudos to the chief for working on this and getting this underway. And I look forward to it. You want to talk about another great thing, our food waste collection project?
Yeah, so actually, Councilwoman Talbot mentioned this last night, and she said, well, this is a little early because we haven't really figured it out yet, but we're on our way towards creating a little program where we can actually have food waste separated out from the regular trash and have a separate collection. It would start as a part of the drop-off facility that happens on Saturday mornings down at the DPW yard, but we would open it up for weekday use as well. You'd be able to drive in there with food scraps, and it could be, it's not really restrictive. Like you could even put napkins, you know, coffee filters, other kinds of paper products that might be a part of your food, you know, vegetable scraps, meat scraps, bones, whatever it is that's food related, that normally go in the trash can because it can't go in a recycling bin, would be in a little bucket that people would keep on their countertop or in their and under their sink or something. And then you can bring it down on Saturdays or on some other weekday and dump it in these larger cans. The way that it's kind of getting catalyzed is, again, it's the role of the county. The county is actually providing the pickup, which is the main problem, right? Getting the stuff to the composting facility. So they're actually paying the trucking company to do that. The city would still pay for the disposal cost, and the disposal cost is about $29 a ton, which is exactly what we pay to get rid of trash. So every ton that moves from trash into food waste, it just reduces our costs on trash disposal and enables this resource really to go back into the environment. It comes back as compost and soil. Landscapers can use, people gardening and so on. So it's a great idea that our wonderful environmental, our Conservation Advisory Council has been excited about for a while. And since the county actually created that agreement where we can get free transport of this stuff to the composting facility, that essentially makes it possible for us to get going. So we'll buy these various containers, and people can throw their food waste. One of the things that's a little tricky is that a lot of people want to use a compostable little bag and throw that in. We've got to make sure that no plastic bags or even like dog waste bags, they have to be the right kind of compostable bag. So we'll need to keep an eye on that, because if we have too much of the wrong thing in there, the folks, they're going to reject the load at the composting facility. And
there'll also be signage and stuff. So once this opens, there'll be signs for what can, you know, is considered compostable. So we'll be letting people know about that. But again, it's an exciting thing. Thank you again to the CAC and everyone that's working hard on this. Thanks to the county for making sure we're able to do this by transporting it. It's one more thing, one step closer in our making Peekskill more green and really looking at the environment. We're excited also to announce that we're looking for a sustainability coordinator, which also falls along this line. So there's a posting out there for a position. You want to talk a little bit about that, Andy?
Yeah, actually, I got to get it up on the website today or tomorrow. The city council approved last night by a resolution our request for proposals from folks who either individually or as a company would provide a consulting service to the city to help us navigate and do more sustainability projects. And specifically, we're looking for the Climate Smart Communities program, which the state has, to advance the city up through a list of sustainability actions to get to that bronze and then the silver award as recognition. The city does a lot for sustainability already. We're working on a solar project. We recycle, which is, people forget about that. Like curbside recycling is your first stop as far as sustainability goes. Like just get stuff out of the trash and into the recycling. We can always do better on that as well. Like there are households that aren't participating and that service is already paid for. Trucks are rolling around the city. If the bins aren't out there, they can't pick them up. So the sustainability coordinator would help promote our sustainability projects and the new initiatives that can help us move the dial on overall sustainability for the city. I think we all recognize that we are in a climate, real urgent kind of crisis level situation globally. Everybody needs to do their part to try to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases coming out. One of the biggest things the city has done with that is simply the aggregated energy procurement, that program where so many Peekskill households participate in just getting renewable sources of electricity makes a huge impact. It's the equivalent of thousands of cars being taken off the road, hundreds of thousands of trees being planted. That's probably the single biggest impact thing the city has done. But a lot of other things are taking place too. We're looking for electric vehicles to add to our fleet. We've got EV chargers out there. We're looking to add more of those. We've got a couple of solar projects which are in the on the, I wouldn't call them the back burner. They're moving towards the front burner.
Right.
The siting of solar projects. I was just talking with the building department. They're getting regular applications for electric vehicle chargers. People who've got a car and they want to hook it up in the garage with the right kind of wiring. Regular permits for people with rooftop solar. So people in Peekskill are doing what they need to do, and we're just going to continue to support that however we can.
Right. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Let's talk a little bit about our $800,000 in funding for New York State Regional Economic Development Council for a water quality improvement project.
So this is a really great grant, which we worked on with a couple different engineering companies. And basically, the problem that it addresses is when it rains hard, there are certain places where the stormwater runoff system actually connects into the sewer system, which shouldn't be that way. Because what happens is you chug all that rainwater into the sewer system. It adds to the energy cost of pumping that wastewater along, and it potentially offers the hazard of overflows, which could get contaminated water into local streams, the Hudson River. It just needs to be fixed. So the engineering company identified a number of locations in the city where those connections exist, and the solutions to that are basically building a disconnected storm sewer so that the water stays in the storm sewer system instead of going into the sanitation system. You got a picture of the underground, our streets, there's pipes everywhere, right? You got the storm drains going to basically drain to streams. You got the sanitation pipes. You got our water distribution system. You got gas lines. There's a lot of stuff going on under there. And so this project, which is great, it's funded by the state for $800,000, will enable us to pick off a number of these locations where there's connections between the rainwater runoff, stormwater system, and the sanitation system. It focuses down kind of on the south side of the city. As you come down Washington, and kind of the pipes going down towards Lower South Street tend to be the locations where you get these problems. And there's a pump station at Louisa Street that pushes this stuff over towards the county wastewater treatment plant, which is further north along the river. And that pump station is working way harder than it should have to work because of the rainwater that's coming into the system.
All right.
Sorry, that's probably a little more information you're looking for. But
no, but it's good for people to know, and they should know that, we're really involved with taking care of the quality of the water. So, and we're just really lucky with Dave Rambo and the water department for getting these kinds of grants to help us with that. So I want to talk a little bit about the affordable housing ordinance. So that's out for an RFP. You want to talk about that?
Right. Yeah, so the city council did a lot of policy work over the last year or so, getting to finally vote on a resolution which approved a new law where any new market rate development has to set aside 10% of the apartments or homes to be sold or rented at a rate that's affordable to folks who live in Peekskill. And of course, there are criteria for that that are in the law. It's based on an average median, the area median income for Westchester County. So if you earn less than 80% of the median income, then your family could qualify for the workforce housing, right? And if you earn less than 60%, you qualify for the affordable housing units. But the cool thing is the city now requires any developer who's building a project to actually set aside units to be sold at an affordable level. The next step with that is to have an organization, a nonprofit, that would administer the program. So when there is a new development, the developer knows who they need to talk to in terms of finding people who qualify to be their tenants. And so we're going to set up a program for that so that people could know when units are available and how they can apply and how their eligibility will be assessed and ultimately what the results of that assessment are.
All right. So this, again, another addition to our code. We did not have this before. So it's really getting apartments or houses in here as developers are coming in and developing on property that they own. So it's a great thing. Talk a little bit about our Fort Hill Park construction bid that's out.
So we've been doing so much park development in the city of Peekskill. The city's just it's the rate at which park improvements are taking place and will take place over the next few years is really kind of extraordinary. Fort Hill, of course, is a spectacular area up on top of the mountain there. It's got some trails in it, but they're not in great shape. And this is a grant to improve and add trails and add interpretive signage so that people know where they are. And so when they're at the trailhead, have a little map there and some guidance, some historical information and stuff like that. So that's one project which is queued up, and it's always exciting when we actually, you do the grant, you get the design, and finally you get to the point where you actually put it out for construction. So that bid has been released, and it's exciting to everybody because we're going to, obviously find a contractor who can actually get this project done, and that's happening in a lot of projects across the city right now are in different stages of that pipeline, from grant funding through getting a bid out to actually getting the contractor working and overseeing that and getting to completion. So Fleischman Pier is going out to contract, which is huge. The renovation of that pier, so a cruise ship can come in there, is just it's a fabulous project. It's funded in multiple ways through the DRI process, through the state funding, the city itself with matching funds. That's going to bid. That old pier is going to get torn out, a new one built. Facilities on land in terms of parking and bathrooms and so on. It's extraordinary. That project moving forward this year is one of the biggest construction projects that the city will see.
So it's going to open up the waterfront even more for tourism, people coming in to see our great city and look at our beautiful waterfront and just explore the city. So it's exciting.
Yeah, we've already been approached by a small cruise ship line. And Mayor, you were in that meeting. We sat down with them. They're very excited. They said, we want to be first in line to use this pier and start working on an agreement for its use. And we talked about how to connect them into the business community and who they should meet with as far as those guests that they have coming to cultural events, coming shopping in the city, coming to parks and stuff like that. So
exciting times. You want to talk a little bit about any other DRI grants and the DRF things that are coming in?
So the main thing to know is that very soon you're going to see a resolution actually come up your next cycle where we're approving the funding contracts. What happened was the DRI process was a planning process, and finally the state said, okay, here are the projects we're going to fund. And each one of those projects is assigned to a state agency which oversees it, the grant. Those agencies are now ready to sign funding contracts for the city. So each project has to be approved for the contract for funding, where the city says, we will accept this money on these terms. And then once those projects are funded, we can turn around and start working on them. Specifically, for example, Pugsley Park and the Monument Park, which are both due for money for upgrades, that will involve a community consultation process because it's a park redesign. Essentially, people need to talk to each other about what makes sense to do there. Once that design work is done, then we'll have a construction process that needs to be bid out to contractors to do that kind of work. And that's true for all the projects. They need to go through a process. So the funding contract is an important step. It's not the same thing as the construction contract. We're not there yet. And that those projects will evolve a bit over the next year or so, depending on how time consuming they are as far as the design process goes.
But it's great to know that we're starting to move and we're seeing some action being done on those. So it's great.
Yeah, one of the things that's really up and running almost now is the city council saw this, the downtown revitalization fund, which has about $700,000 in it for small businesses to do facades and equipment improvements, other kind of capital projects. We've actually solicited and hired a consultant to administer that program, and very shortly we're going to be rolling out introductions for her to the local business community so they can start working on an application process to get that money.
Exciting. Talk a little bit about recruiting for our planning, our zoning, our historic preservation, and the Peekskill Housing Authority boards. We have a lot of boards out there, folks, and we need people to volunteer.
Yeah, thank you to our volunteers. First of all, it's amazing. It's very, very important work, and the city would not work without volunteers with real authority, whether they're advisory or they actually have decision making. These groups are important, especially the land use boards. So we do have vacancies on planning, zoning, historic landmarks, and also the Peekskill Housing Authority has vacancies as well. So we're always recruiting. There's information on the city website. They can contact the city manager's office for more information. We welcome resumes, letters of interest. Don't be shy about it. Just, a lot of times city council, they'll interview somebody who's interested in one thing, and it'll turn out maybe they're better off by helping out in a different way. We try to afford people the opportunity to get involved wherever possible.
Yeah, and just note, what the Peekskill Housing Authority is so for its commissioners on the Housing Authority Board. The residents have their own election as well, and that's done through the housing office. And I know they're in the midst of petitions at this point in time because there's 2 openings for that as well. See, we're currently looking for a candidate for a full-time position, the city manager. So everyone knows that unfortunately Andy will be leaving us. So we do need to find a candidate for that position. So you can go onto the city website and get more information on that position and submit your applications should you be interested.
Thank you. I just realized I think I was screen sharing my notes for this meeting on the live video. So it may have been a little too much for people to look at. So sort of a technical, it was a new trick that I was learning there. So, but in any case, it's important that people know that the volunteers are absolutely important to the functioning of the city, and please submit your interest and throw your hat in the ring.
Yep.
Let's take a couple look at Facebook comments because I know we're running out of time, Mayor.
Yep.
There's a question about essentially a complaint about people leaving commercial vehicles on city streets overnight, which is prohibited. I know our police do enforce that. If people want to send in specific locations, we're always happy to take a close look. So thank you for that. Mr. Evangelista wanted to know about the archive room and if they're related to local history. The Peekskill Field Library has an amazing local history collection, and they have their own archives, and that's where the really important historical documents are if they're not over at the Historical Museum. The papers in the city archives room are really just the kind of paper churn from administrative work in our departments. It's old bills and personnel records that need to be shredded and things like that. There's probably not a whole lot of historical value down there, then like not old newspaper articles and things like that. Welcome to ask specific questions about that and take a tour if anybody's really interested. Someone's accusing us of being socialists.
Okay.
But whatever. So that's about it. And there's a request for the name of the cruise ship line, and I honestly I can't remember it right now.
The name of the what?
The cruise ship company that came in. I can't remember the name right now off the top of my head. I could look it up. But we could.
A couple of announcements. So tonight at 6 o'clock, the Wet Seed and the Mid-Hudson Valley Federal Credit Union are hosting at 6 p.m. at the credit union on the corner of Park and Broad, an event for business owners who want to come in and find out how to do business with Wet Seed and with the credit union and how to build your business. So that is a free thing at 6 p.m. And also on February 28th in our council meeting, the city will be honoring the Black History Month awardees. Also in our the lobby of City Hall, there is a display for Black history that we encourage people to come out and take a look at. It's really, really nice. I want to thank our clerk's department for putting that together. So if you have a moment, please stop in the City Hall and take a look at it. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure spending time with you.
You as well.
Take care.